Hello everyone. How's everybody doing today? Can you guys hear me? Oh dear. I think there's going to be ads in this video. How do I turn them off? I am very sorry. I hope you guys got, the thing on. How are you guys? I'm gonna just pop out the chat. So let's get started for today. I'm going to be taking a look at this portrait and talking about how to go about painting a portrait for the 14-day challenge. Hello, Kyle. Hello, Pencil. How are you guys? So this is a day one of the 14-day challenge. The 14-day challenge, as you guys may already know, is a 14-day portrait challenge. You draw a portrait for 14 days. Doesn't have to be every day. 14 attempts, 14 times. 14 different portraits started from scratch. Between each one, you have to get a critique. You have to post it to the critique channel anywhere on Discord or on the subreddit. And that's the key. That's the secret, is getting the critique. That's how you get the improvement. So this is day one. What's wrong with it? Let's talk about it. So it's still early, meaning that you don't have any of the structure of the head, of the eyes, or the details. You have the structure of the head. So the eyebrows are not necessary. The cranium is too small. The cranium is way too small. It needs to be like right up here. It needs to be mostly the length of the face, like maybe like to the nose, from the eyebrows to the nose. That's how much extra space we need, maybe a little bit more than that. The lower half of the face is too dark for the upper half of the face. They don't reflect the same complexion. You have some muddy colors and some misplaced contrast on either side of the nose. Other than that, I don't think there are that many issues for where you are right now. Before you move on to day two, these are the corrections you need to make for day one. You need to make sure that you do these corrections before you step into day two. If you've done day two already, apply these corrections as you go. So let's duplicate the layer. And you have this like value that's bleeding over. You forgot to lock the layer, or maybe you forgot to delete. But you have this like bleed over from the beard shadow that you added. Feels like you added that pretty quickly at the end. So I'm just getting rid of that bleed of color. So I'm going to fix these anatomical issues, and then we'll go from there, okay? We'll talk about edges, we'll talk about making them look more clean, we'll talk about contrast control. All of those things are separate. So the portrait and the anatomy of the portrait are separate from the lighting and all of that extra good stuff. So if we jump into Liquify, we can start adjusting this anatomy. So I'm going to zoom all the way out so that I can see what's happening on the skull. I need that cranium to have much more space for the brain. In real life, when the skull is too small for the brain, or the brain is too small, or the brain is not developed, it's a whole disease. It's a complete mutation. It's a whole disease. I believe it's called Marfan syndrome. Or a syndrome, I guess, not a disease. So what I'm doing before, after, is I'm unsquishing the skull. Again, not to take it lightly for those who do have Marfan syndrome. And then I'm making the neck a little bit more slender. I don't want it to look like it's got almost like a melting effect into the skull space. Then I'm gonna see this little pinch. I'm gonna pinch out the jawline. Pinch, pinch. I'm gonna pinch it out. And then I'm going to kind of bring the face, the lower half of the face back up. Before, after, before, after. So you can see that the anatomical error really was the worst mistake you made. Okay, of all the mistakes you made, it was the anatomical error in the skull. Okay, so we got that part figured out. Let's move on. The next issue that you did was the amount of black and white. So it's not the grays, but you're using a little bit too many extremes in the values. So I'm going to find a midtone somewhere here. This one seems like a good midtone. And I'm just going to brush it over everything and put it on lighten. And drop it a degree or two. This is going to average out all the values that you use. It's not a quick fix by any means, but it's going to help us average out what's happening. I will delete edit where we have the shadow of the neck. This is one of the most important edges on the face. So I'll allow that shadow to be dark. There are other areas of the face that need to be black or dark. The nostril holes, the eyelids or the lash line, the eyebrows because they're pigment, the core shadow of the nose, the two corners of the mouth. Those are the 6 dark spots. And the space that separates the mouth, the lips. The space that separates the lips. And then the shadow of the lower lip. Okay, so we had all this extra value we didn't even need. And this is the value that we do need. We only need it where it is actually dark. So we can keep the same complexion you had before. So I'm going to merge that down. And now we need to block in the highlights. So you have highlights in odd places. Of all the places that need to be the most lit up, it is definitely not on either side of the nostril. We do need light there, but not that much. So I'm going to darken it. Okay, and then I'm going to grab this value, the highlighter value that you have. I'm going to put it on normal, and I'm going to block in all the highlights, starting with the most important highlight of the face, which is the nose bridge. Then we're going to have 2 for, not in any particular order after the nose bridge. I would say the second most highlighted would be the forehead. Sometimes it is the most highlighted, or highlit, or lit up, or whatever. And then the cheeks as a V shape, as a triangle for the cheeks. Okay, and then we have the chin. And then we have smaller areas of highlight, like the upper part of the lower lip. Okay, the upper lip is almost always darker than the lower lip because it looks down, away from the light. And then we have the upper lip area of the Cupid's bow. So my brush is smaller now, as you can see. Okay, and then we're going to also do a dark spot. Now my brush is smaller. I can start appreciating smaller areas. The eye socket. I have a hard time doing the symmetrical eye. And then we have a block for the lower eyelid. And we need some highlights, not really highlights, just a lighter value for the white of the eye so that we can also see It works doubly so that we can also see the lower eyelid. Okay, and then we have the side of the nose that you already had. And then now we're just going to go the next level in detail. So I'm going to go to liquify and make the eyes less rounded. They don't need to be rounded like an actual round eye. The eyeball is round, but not the eye slit, not the actual opening of the eyelids that the eyeball pokes through. That is more oval or elongated or elliptical. I'm also going to let the eyebrows, because they work as a shade for the eye and they work in tandem with the eyebrow bone, I'm going to let them sit even wider than the eye. The eyebrows should be wider than the eye. I'm also going to widen the nose. It's too thin. Doesn't feel like it is the right age or size or the right type of nose size for the size of the skull. It doesn't feel like it's the same bone density or even the same type of weight. Feels like it belongs to a much smaller face with a much smaller or lower bone density. Okay, so let's take a look at these changes. We made the eyes less far apart, the eyebrows more wide and in tune with the eyebrow bone. Okay, so we've made a lot of steps so far. All right, we blocked and we corrected the anatomy. So these are the steps you are also going to take. And now I'm going to blend. I'm going to start with the largest areas. And move into the smallest areas. My biggest brush of the smudge, my biggest smudge brush is a reflection of the softest, fattiest areas, softest or fattiest or both areas of the face, meaning that the forehead is not exactly fatty, but it is very soft. Or soft and how it transitions. Even for some male faces, the forehead is generally more rounded in comparison to other features. I'm making sure to preserve that shadow in between the eyebrows, and now I'm blending out the forehead. I don't want those patches everywhere, especially for a 14-day challenge. You should be aiming for more clean rendering. And then I'm going to block a little bit more. So you go through this cycle of block, blend, introduce new details, block and blend. So there's a lot of recursiveness in the process of painting a portrait. It goes back and forth. There is no one specific set of tasks to do because it's a transformative process. It's a metamorphosical process. Metamorphic process. And then I'm just blending the inside of the eyebrows. This is important because it makes the eyebrows look like they're growing. And they actually have hair there. Now I'm going to place in some details. So the inner corners of the eyes have a bit more detail. They have some highlight there. And the very top of the eyelids as well. And then I'm going to basically allow the eyes to take that focal point importance, to take that position as the most bright, the highest in detail, with the sharpest of edges. And I'm going to allow myself to build up the highlights of the skin, making sure to not value share. Value share is when you use the same value to describe two completely different elevations, objects, depressions, whatever it may be. If they are different in nature, different in structure, They should be different in value. And then I'm going to add the detail of the Cupid's bow, which isn't really detailed, just one little rectangle right there. And then I'm going to expand on the wideness of the lip corner. Right, and lighten that shadow there. And then make sure that the chin has a coarse shadow as well, because remember, not all of the chin is exposed to the light. And then guess what? We're blending again. And this is the recursive process of painting a portrait right in front of you. It's not some kind of nuclear method that requires a certain level of steps that cannot be interrupted. It's not, you know, like nuclear energy. It's not particle physics. It's not, you know, highly sensitive instruments that you have to use a specific order of tools in order to pull off. It is a very forgiving, malleable craft that allows you to make mistakes. In fact, mistakes are the main part. The actual tool itself is the mistake. So trust that you will be allowed to revisit most of these details. Most of these sections, you will be allowed to revisit. You will be able to revisit all of these pieces here, all of these features. And you will be able to produce something extra, give it something new each time. Sharpen an edge here, add some more detail there, until the piece is done. So where do we go from here? We just go to the next value drop. So the nose looks unfinished because it's not at the required amount of contrast. So I'm slowly building up. Look at my first brush, second brush, third brush. They work their way in, creating a grid, slow process. Okay, and so I'm slowly blending, but I'm not blending this edge. Of course not, because that's an edge that is an overlap, and that needs to stay sharp. And then I'm giving each area a shadow. The septum needs its own cast shadow, and each nostril needs a cast shadow. And now we have this nose. It's almost done. It just needs some bounce light lines. Okay, and then we have the mouth. The mouth should be over blended. The only part of the mouth that shouldn't be blended is the space where the two lips touch. Everything else should pretty much be blended. An over-blended mouth is a well-rendered mouth. Okay, because if you start over outlining the lips, they no longer look like flesh. They'll start looking like a paste on or some kind of pasty or something. It'll look like the lip has been drawn on in real life. Unless they're wearing lipstick or some kind of pigment, you really don't need to be over defining the upper lip. And then we have the corners of the mouth, which need to be a little bit darker. And once again, just darkening the contrast of where the two lips meet. If you want to, because of pigmentation, and want to give the lips more definition, you can darken the whole upper lip a little bit more if you like. I know my upper lip is much darker than my lower lip just from pigmentation. And then I'm just going to give it a little bit of an outline at the top. I have lip liner around my lips, like a pigmentation lip liner. So I usually just draw what I see in the mirror. Not that my paintings have been self-portraits or anything. And then a little bit of that same lining effect on the lower lip. But again, I'm blending all of that out. Do not want an over-defined, over-rendered lip. It should just generally be there, but should not be the focal point. Okay, so we've done a lot so far. Sorry for the coughing. Let me blend out a little bit more of the nose here. Any just rogue brush strokes. These shadows, that the brush strokes that I added for the nose, I am blending out the lower part of that, each brush stroke. So if this was the brush stroke, I'm blending this, I'm keeping that. Again, please look at what I'm doing. I don't know why I said that with such force. I used the voice, the Benny Gesserit voice on you guys just now. So this was the block for the cast shadow. This is what we're blending. This is what we're keeping. I'm going to demonstrate it one more time. You have no idea how important it is to be able to do this in your work. You do a block, you blend half. Okay, this is it. This is what makes work look complete. This block that is unblended on one side gives you the sharpness and contrast that you need to define detail. And this gives you the transition or assimilation of that brushstroke back into the portrait. So block, blend. All right. And then I'm going to push the contrast of the nose ever deeper. And once again, doing it transitionally, not all in one go. I'm not doing that because that looks bad and looks wrong. The nose doesn't just suddenly cliff drop. It slowly happens. The tube of the nostrils slowly encompasses the face underneath it. Okay, so now we have a very defined nostril that does everything it needs to do. Okay, so this contrast of the nose needs to be caught up everywhere else, but because I don't have pupils and irises, I just skip those. But we can still add them to the lash line and the crease. So for the crease, it's actually really simple. It's very simple to the nostril block I just showed you. So we're slowly building up the darkest point, and we're blending only the upper half of that line. So it works more as a slow transition that slowly becomes the crease of the eye. And then I just clarify that that line so the transition feels more complete and reaches the deepest point of that trench. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to do a couple brush strokes. In fact, let me just flip my canvas. We're going to do the couple brush strokes, and then we're going to blend out the block until it feels a little bit more clean. And I'm just going to repeat the process until I have eye creases that really feel like creases, that really feel like fat is being pinched inward. So this was a lot of steps to get to this point, but they're all easy steps, easy to recreate. So I really invite you guys to rewatch this tutorial, do a step-by-step of everything that I'm doing and talking you through. And it's all going to get memorized. Your brain is not going to do two tasks and not find a faster way to repeat it the second time. So if you just show up for your brain will show up for you. Try it, go do the step-by-step, study. It's annoying, I know, learning a new skill, learning a new task. And this all goes towards answering a question that was posed on the subreddit. How do I stop being a beginner? A beginner, the difference between a beginner and an intermediate, a late intermediate into an advanced student and a master is just tons more mistakes. And mistakes come from mileage. And a beginner, in order to stop being a beginner, need to up their mileage. They need to do more and make more mistakes and more stumbles, and they need to learn from each one. That's how the human brain works. It works from mistakes. It works from failure. In fact, the brain needs to compare what worked and what didn't and know what to avoid so that there's only success afterwards. How am I able to do this in front of you with no reference and no guide of my own? My brain has the mileage. I have given it the mileage it needed. I've done this countless times. So now I can do it while sleeping. In fact, I'm asleep right now. I'm kidding. In case you didn't know, I was kidding. I'm actually not asleep. So trust your brain to learn what it is you're making it learn, what you're there to learn, what you've showed up for. It will learn it. You just have to try your hand at it. So follow the step-by-step of the tutorial, and I promise you'll be happier with your results because they will be based off like real scientific foundational knowledge, light physics, anatomy. All of the things I'm teaching you are not techniques in and of their own. It's just science. This is just what light does. This is me worshiping science. It's just the recognizing the visual science of light on form. Me telling you that radial shading is the movement of shadow up into the nose isn't some kind of swirl method or technique or whatever you've seen out there. It's literally what's happening on a physical level, grid-wise. The nose is slowly entering in cross sections. The face is entering the nose in cross sections. So your brush is a reflection of physical acts of the light. And I'm just blending out here. I'm letting myself use black and white around the focal point. Can anyone answer why? Why am I allowing for more light use of black and like white, more contrast use around the eye? What is that about? I thought we were supposed to avoid black and white. Why am I using so much of it? Look at the white I'm using. Look at the black I'm using. All right, and then I'm using that black for the lash line. Flipping the canvas, using it on the other side. Okay, and then just letting a little wing come out for the lashes. Contrast pulls focus to it. You want that to go to the eyes. Beautiful answer. Thank you, Kyle. Gold star for you. And so I'm letting the black and white sit there because that's going to pull the eyes. The eyes of every portrait are the focal point. The focal point of every portrait are the eyes. So now I need to just make sure that the lower eyelids connect to the eyeball in a more believable way. The white of the eyes are still feeling a little bit dark. So now, because I have a reference for the highlight of the eye sockets, I'm comparing the white I'm climbing up into to the white I've already used. So that's what contrast does. That's how you make good contrast. You compare what you've already used. The decision you made elsewhere in the face. Usually we compare to the eyes. And just like that, we have a good quality of white, quantity of white for the white of the eyes. But her eyes look a little bit open. So I want them to look like they have more of a comfortable placement. And so that's going to come from having a shadow come off of the lash line. So what I'm doing is adding a shadow, very, very deep black for the lash line. And this is the blackest black I can use for the lashes. And it's okay if the brush is a little messy. And I'm letting that shadow sit a little lower. That shadow is going to make it seem like these lashes are casting a shadow over the eye, which is their job. So that's the point here, is that everything has a function. Anatomy and function are synonymous. Function of the anatomy is the anatomy. What does it do? Why is it there? Why did nature keep it there? And then I'm going to get any of these nearby white values, and I'm going to just draw a line right on top of the lower lash line. That's the water line. But I'm not going to do this. I'm not actually trying to break the laws of physics. I'm only making it bright towards the chunkier part of the lower lash line, because that's the part that sticks out the most. It's more sticky outy. And then I'm going to brighten the inside of the lower eyelids. I catch a bit of light. And I'm going to let the brightness of the cheek travel around the eyebrow a little bit. Just like so. And I want to make the eyebrows a little bit more symmetrical. Okay, so now the nose still feels a bit small, the eyes still feel a bit overly sized, so there's a lot of leftover from the original drawing. So I'm just going to widen the nose even more and enlarge it a little bit, so it matches her face and proportions. And the way you know is you draw a line straight down from the inner corners. The nose should be generally on or within that line, or a little bit over that line, or a little bit wider than that line, but it definitely should not be like a whole 2 lines thicknesses from that line, or else the nose feels too small. And sometimes the nose can be freakishly small, like it reaches the point where it's almost a creature design or an alien. No offense to aliens, if they're watching. I do apologize if I've been insensitive. And then we have a wider nose bridge. It's all about function. Oh, does it? Oh, yeah, it does. It's the eyebrows. Burn it. So then I'm going to just darken that upper lip a little bit more. And if you do want lipstick, it's just a matter of darkening upper and lower, because red on the color wheel is one of the darkest colors. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little bit of brightness for the Cupid's bow. And I'm going to introduce with my blocking brush the highlights. And those are pure white. Even if you're painting with color, you'll use pure white because there is a reflectiveness in the skin from the oils that sit on the skin. A little bit here. A little bit of that reflectiveness sits on top like an upside down U shape for the forehead. That's all the oil there. And then I'm just going to blend that out for the most part, but not really blend all the brush strokes out. Highlight reveals detail, so I want to keep some of the ugliness of that brush stroke, some of the mess, some of the imperfection. We want to keep some of it. And the same thing with the nose. I'm going to let some of that highlight sit on the bridge, just there. Sit on the lower eyelid, just catching a bit of light. Sometimes maybe it'll catch the shadow of the eye bag. It doesn't necessarily make her look older or younger or anything. It's just a natural part of the anatomy. Extra skin, just like your knuckles have extra skin, the eye has all that extra skin for when it needs to close. And then I'm blending away at the cheekbones. The cheekbones can also be defined a little bit more. So I'm getting a pure black, low opacity, soft brush, and I'm slowly building up the cheekbone. See that? So it's not that I want you to paint perfect cheeks every time that you draw. It's that to study cheekbones is to study radial shading. You're missing out on the educational aspect of it. And so I'm just providing that extra structure there. And then while zooming out, I'm going to just normalize the highlights around the middle of the face. What's going on over here? Okay. And most of the time you will need to use your highlights to promote that cheekbone structure. Then you need shadow. The eyes are a little asymmetrical from where I'm standing right now. So I'm using some highlight. Again, on pure white, sometimes you can stipple it in. And from this distance, I'm doing darken, and I'm just like laying down a bunch of shadow on the eye socket to create like a halo of shadow. This is one of those more master techniques that are kind of very hidden. I don't gatekeep, so I give away all of those little secrets. But when you zoom out and add that little halo of shadow, it creates this presence of the skeletal structure that may be very, very difficult to notice. It goes unnoticed most of the time. Take a look at the difference of that. The shadow that was, the depth that shadow provided. So, before, after, a lot of extra depth. And then I'm going to go to where I did it and place it in and delete away at the white of the eyes, which don't need to be in any more shadow. Their value has already been assigned. So you see that extra little bit of depth that makes everything feel less flat. Before, after, before, after. Very, very important shadow. Don't forget about it. Okay, so then for the neck, all we got to do is just blend this neck shadow out. Oops. Blend a little bit here, and you can keep pushing the contrast more and more and more. So I'm going to go pure black, low opacity, and I'm going to build up the shadow of the neck, the shadow of the chin over the neck. Really important edge, really important contrast it provides, definition, and it makes it look less like your characters are, you know, tucking in their chin. And I'm just using my brush strokes to kind of create a more believable cylindrical structure to the neckline, while also leaving behind some brush grain. Excuse me, I've been clearing my throat all day. Okay, and then I'm going back and getting my soft brush and allowing some of the light to sit on either side of the neck, because the neck is receiving light from either side of the room. So technically the neck shadow is only darkest right under the chin. But we still needed to build up that shadow to establish that value. Okay, and then I'm just going to talk about the skull a little bit more. I'm going to jump into Liquify and try to get the eyes to look the same. So right now they're a little bit different from each other. And then give the skull a little bit more size and width as well to the head. The head feels a little bit long. That looks better. And for this mouth, if you don't want it to have that kind of natural pout, you can cancel it out by adding a little triangle of light under each lip corner. Just a little triangle, boop, 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 boop. And what you do is you blend it out. Blend it into the lip, blend it around. That'll give the lips this natural water that sits around the corners. Your mouth wouldn't be able to move if it was completely dry. It's always lubricated, like a machine, like an engine. And so you need to show that it's a wet machine. Sorry, but I gotta, it's moist. So, and then I'm just going to kind of elevate the bounce light there. A little bit of extra shine on the lips. There's no other word. I gotta use that horrible word. And moist. It sounds like it, you know, it is. And then I'm just going to give the chin some of that same oil. So pretty much everywhere you get pimples is where oil sits in the face. So usually you get pimples like right along that T-zone, right above the eyebrow, around the nose. That's where we have most of the oil of the face. And the whole body is a lubricated machine, right? We're 70% water, at least. And so we need to show that the skin has this suppleness. Not so much that scary glass skin look that has been very popular in skincare recently. That does not look healthy. It looks like you nuked your skin, but kind of, you know, something in between. All right, so just showing that halo of highlight that sits around. Pretty sure the skin isn't supposed to look like glass. I feel like they're over exfoliating. I feel like all these skincare people who make their skin look like glass are going to age really badly because they put their skin through so many cycles of healing because of the excessive chemicals that they're using, that they're just all going to age just like all in one fell swoop. In like 5 years, they're going to age like 20 years. And it's not showing yet, right? Because they're all still kind of young. I don't know, maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about. But the skin is not supposed to be that shiny. It's supposed to have a little bit of a matte look. Something in between shiny and matte, I think, is a healthy amount. And then we have a little bit of that highlight on the Cupid's bow. I mean, not the Cupid's bow, the waterline. It's not supposed to look like she's crying, but again, it's supposed to look moist. And then I'm just going to add a little ball of that white on the inner corner. And you probably think, oh, she's so annoyingly zoomed out. Why can't she zoom in? I can't teach you if I zoom in. Sorry. I can't teach you if I zoom in. I have to be able to make these decisions from a more informed vantage point, which is zooming out. So you should do this as well. Like, I'll zoom in now for these brush strokes, but you definitely need to zoom out more in your work so you can make those informed decisions. Nothing can lie when you zoom out. Nothing can hide, nothing can deceive you into thinking it's actually done when really there's like more blending needed and whatnot. And so again with these eyes, I'm so sorry about the amount of throat clearing I'm doing. And then for the eyebrows, you can make them a bit darker if you'd like. To detail eyebrows, you just drag in the value from the top down. Grab, drag, grab, drag, grab, drag, grab, drag, and you're following the root of growth that the eyebrow hair takes, making almost like a fishbone pattern. And if you're an enjoyer of fish, you probably know what I'm talking about. if you don't like bones in your food, look up fish. um, or like feathers, like feathered look. And then I'm just gonna blend out. My inner child is getting bored with teaching and wants me to just go play a game. So that's why it's hijacking the class and making jokes while adult me is trying to finish the class. I'm constantly babysitting this maniac. um, and I'm just blending away a little bit here and here. So we leave the general grain of the eyebrow intact, but it has like this presence there. Do you see that? So it's texture without being texture. It's the illusion of texture, okay? And then you can start it all over again and darken the hair. And then darken the ends. Sometimes I darken the end with like a pencil brush. And this was all my blocking brush, and it's available on my store. My stuff has been on sale for a while because my heart doesn't let me raise the price of my stuff back up. Because all I see is like a student and their cute little credit card and this expensive world that we're all living in, and all of the evil billionaires that are corrupting everything and overcharging everything. And I just feel horrible turning off the sale price. I feel horrible. So I've just left it on out of complete love for you guys. So my brushes are available there, as well as, you know, everything else I talk about. And just doing a little bit more detailing on the eyebrows. But all of this was done with my number 2 blocking brush. Let me triple check because I use it so often I forgot. Dry oil number 2, and then the pencil brush, which is this one, and the number 4 smudge. It's not letting me rename the brush. Number 4. This just says number 4. Okay. And I'm just creating a little bit more definition here and there. Just showing where the eyelids sneak back up under the corner. Okay, and see all this brush grain. I'm so sorry. You see all this brush grain left behind. That's painterly. That makes your work painterly. It makes it look clean. That's what separates it from looking like it's AI. AI still can't seem to figure out brush strokes, because brush strokes are a result of confusion and mistakes and guesswork, and it's not human, so it's not making these mistakes and this guesswork. And so having this type of brush available, like working with a blocking brush, is part of what makes your work look like it's made by hands. And then I'm just adding a little bit of definition. So I was gardening in the rain the other day and I got a cold. So my throat has been very itchy and horrible and painful. So that's why I'm clearing my throat so much. It was a labor of love. And I'll do it again too. All right, and I'm just cleaning up here. So now if we observe the upper half, look at where this thing is dancing. Look at the area it's dancing in. And then look at the lower half. All right, upper half, lower half. That's a healthy difference. You still have the sphere intact. You don't need to have this extreme, you know, difference between the upper and lower half. It doesn't need to look muddy. It doesn't need to look off. In fact, the lower half can be even brighter. You have more than enough shadow for that lower half. You can add even more around the jowls area, around the upper lip. You can show a little bit more, hey, you can show a little bit more hydration. Hey, stop. You can show, like sometimes when you breathe hot air through your nose. That leaves behind a condensation effect that adds more hydration to your upper lip, which means more shine. Cupid's bow could catch even more light. There's a lot of allowance. There's a margin for error, a margin for experimentation. There is no specific quantity of highlight required. It's very, very open to interpretation once you learn the basics. And you really have to be trying to make a mistake to make that type of extreme contrast. Or you're just like it's your very first time trying. But you really have to be trying to push the margins into no longer representational, because this is representational. We're trying to show the general description, the visual description of these objects. And the human face is a very specific object with a lot of mechanisms involved, but they're not impossible. And it's not like some kind of fourth dimensional type of impossible entity to render. It's still just a three-dimensional object. And I'm adding some bounce light on either side of the face. This is the face catching the light in the room. And I'm deleting it from the neck, just only on the face. Oops. Because I already did the one on the neck. So see that bounce light? What it does, it kind of wakes up the third dimension and shows us that the light moves even in the shadowed areas. Okay. The head still feels a little bit small to me. I feel like her head is a little bit too small. Let me give it one more resize and then we're done. Oops. Filter, liquify. And then I'll show you the before and after. That before and after, oops, is going to be quite a difference. It's going to be quite the change. And if you, again, according to the question that was asked on the subreddit, let me bring up the question actually. The question was, how do I stop being a beginner? I just showed you every step that I took today, and you can see how a big factor of these changes is just the step-by-step and memorizing the step-by-step and picking up the miles of that step-by-step. So let's flatten the image. Look at the before and after. So you'll see the step-by-step that I did and how it affected the final look. So the background value was perfect, but your values were way too muddy and way too dark, way too soon. Again, I invite you to go through the time lapse of today's video so you can see. This is what I would call, yes, a beginner face. You know, full love in my heart, I would call this a beginner face. And you have to, at some point or another, if you're a beginner, hold my hand or hold the hand of any mentor. You have to hold your hand, somebody's hand if you're learning how to walk. You have to hold on to something. So hold on to the process of this video, of other videos you may watch, and memorize that process. That's how you escape being a beginner, with a step-by-step process. So this person asked, how do I stop being a beginner? So you're not a beginner. I would say you're middle, early, intermediate. You are building, you are structuring, a little too much contrast. I think that you're at the point where you need to start using references for the mouths. Don't guess the anatomy. And for you, an actual beginner of day one at least, of the 14-day challenge, you need to start following tutorials. Don't, now that you did this, the 14-day challenge is an amazing diagnostic tool for yourself, for your teacher. It reveals what you don't know and where to stop and study. what I recommend you do is do the corrections for this portrait, of course. Follow today's tutorial and do the corrections. Once I upload the video, follow it along and try to do exactly what I did, or start a whole new piece entirely. This video today is very similar to my masterclass. If you have never bought my masterclass, or you know, you've never been really part of any kind of like online course or anything, and you've never really done it, this is not dissimilar from my masterclass. So you can follow it along, this tutorial, and get to at least the point where I was maybe 30-40 minutes ago. And if you really want, you can push further to where I ended up. So before, after. I did everything in front of you guys, but the most important change that I did was I found a mid-tone, and I used black only where I needed it. Most of the dark values that you used everywhere. Like, I just borrowed this value. If you wanted her to be a darker skin character, that's easy as well. We would just have to darken the character and preserve the eye whites. So if I lost the specific complexion, that's fine. We can bring it back for the most part. And leaving only the highlights in place. So highlights really pop out when you have darker skin characters. It was supposed to be much darker. Okay, so there's a lot of wiggle room with this tutorial that you can apply, but either way, no matter what you intended, your structure wasn't there anatomically. So you need to really focus on that blocking stage I showed you guys. Again, before, after. You need to focus on that blocking stage. What I did with my blocking brush, where I put the blocking brush, what I didn't blend, what I blended. All of those blocks are how we sculpt the clay. Every one of these blocks has a purpose. And that is what you're not doing here. I just see like some outlining, some general ideas. So if you are having trouble like imagining where to put blocks, confidence behind using blocks, it could be anything. There's so many reasons why a student can't approach that. If they're intimidating, if you don't like painting with dark, strong opacity or something like that, not dark, but strong opacity, those are all things outside of art. I would say those are confidence related, fear, failure, anxiety. Those are the reasons why you may have been avoiding the blocking brush. Maybe you feel like it's a bigger tool than you're capable of yielding right now. Wielding, sorry. I'm a little bit doozy today, woozy. So I'll leave you guys with that. Before, after, and this is the one with the medium complexion, I guess. Thank you guys for watching today. I really appreciate you guys coming out to these live streams. It means the world, hanging out with you guys for an evening. That's so awesome. And if you guys have any questions, you have a chance to ask me right now. But in order to do the 14-day challenge, you must have critique. Today was an educational opportunity for this person. I guarantee this artist will never draw this portrait again like this. There is only up from here. You only go up from here. So if you go to my subreddit, you'll see where, oh my goodness, I'm all over the place right now. If you go to istebrak.com and click on the subreddit icon, this will take you to the subreddit. This is where I picked up the piece to critique today. This is their day 1. I'm looking forward to your day 2. I'll make sure to message you today's class. And this is where you guys can submit your 14-day challenge. You can see how many artists are participating in it. And I highly recommend you guys critique each other. If you are participating in the challenge, you have to critique someone else participating, even if you feel like they're better than you or whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It can be a low-level artist critiquing a higher-level artist. We still see some certain mistakes. The level doesn't matter. So I will let you guys go. Thank you everyone for watching. And I'll see you guys on Thursday this week at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye, guys.